Well, I do call this Panorama the trailhead of the North Kaibab Trail, but that's not quite true. The actual trailhead is a parking lot along Highway 67, about a mile from the main North Rim area around the lodge. There are two trailheads at the parking lot. For the North Kaibab Trail, which plunges rapidly from the bottom of the lot, and for the combined start of the Ken Patrick and Uncle Jim trails, which head east along the rim from the top. This spot is actually a few hundred yards out on the Ken Patrick Uncle Jim trails, but it is the only spot near either of the trailheads with any view of the canyon at all, with dense forest blocking the view from the trailheads. You have to wander quite some distance down the North Kaibab Trail before you get your first real view of the canyon. Through the small gap in the trees here, we do have a bit of a view off to the south. The south rim is in view with one major viewpoint at Moran Point visible in line of sight. Closer by is Como Point, which you can jump over to for a fine panoramic view back to here and up and down the entire length of the North Kaibab Trail. But we can't see even a bit of the North Kaibab Trail from here, though we do see the far end of Roaring Springs Canyon, which the North Kaibab Trail descends down through to Bright Angel Creek for the first 5.5 miles of its full 14-mile length. But what we do see here very well is the environment, or life zone, around you at the beginning of the North Kaibab Trail. The concept of life zones was created by naturalist Clinton Hart Merriam in the late 19th century. Much of the fieldwork done by Merriam to develop the concept was done in and around the Grand Canyon, with much of it performed in the area of the San Francisco Peaks. Humphreys Peak is the largest of the San Francisco peaks, and we can also see it from here, 75 miles distant, not far from Flagstaff. The Grand Canyon contains 5 of the 7 major life zones that Merriam mapped out for the whole of North America, all divided by altitude. The North Kaibab Trail passes through 4 of these zones, from the lower Sonoran, right along the river, to the Canadian Life Zone right here at the top. Walking down the 14 miles of the North Kaibab Trail is equivalent, in terms of life zones, of walking from Canada to Mexico. At this spot, at an altitude of about 8,300 feet, we are just barely in the Canadian Life Zone, which in the Grand Canyon National Park starts at about 8,200 feet. We can still see plenty of ponderosa pine, which is the dominant tree in the next life zone down, the transition zone, at altitudes of 6,500 to 8,200 feet. But the predominant tree here is aspen, like this tall specimen right next to us, which is one of the primary trees of the Canadian Life Zone. We also see a few small spruce trees, just starting to appear at this altitude. They become much more common when you get just a bit higher up. From here, you can continue to head through the North Rim Forest on the Walhalla Plateau on the Ken Patrick Trail, ultimately reaching the east rim of the plateau, where you get to the next Ken Patrick Trail panorama within the project. Or you can continue along the same route and branch off on the Uncle Jim Trail, which will take you out to Uncle Jim Point, where you will find a great view of the upper portion of the North Kaibab Trail. Or you can wander the short distance back to the parking lot and head down to the first panorama spot on the North Kaibab Trail proper, where we are still in the forest, but now down at the boundary with the transition life zone and standing next to a giant ponderosa.